Hello and welcome to Saki Tech. As you know, the iPad mini 2 has finally been released and it's out in the wild. In this video, we will do a full comparison between the iPad mini with Retina Display and Google's latest 7-inch tablet, the new Nexus 7 2013 edition. Now, the Nexus 7 has been on the market for a while, and in my opinion, it is far superior to the last generation iPad mini. But now it appears we have a new serious contender on the horizon. So let's dive in and get some details. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to look at is the prices and options. So let's quickly get the pricing out of the way. The iPad mini starts at $399 in US markets for 16 gigabytes of storage, $499 for 32 gigabytes of storage, $599 for 64 gigabytes of storage, and finally $699 for the 128 gigabytes of storage capacity. The new Nexus 7 starts at $239 for 16 gigabytes of storage and $269 for 32 gigabytes of storage. Both tablets are available in LTE versions for on-the-go access. So as we can see by the pricing, the iPad is the more expensive tablet. And also a quick note, since we mentioned storage capacities, let me note that none of these tablets come with any kind of storage expansion options. Okay, so next let's talk about my most favorite part, the processor and the memory. Now the iPad mini comes with quite a powerful chip, namely the 64-bit A7 dual-core processor, which is clocked at 1.3 gigahertz and 1 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM. Now this is the same chip that runs on the iPad Air, but on the iPad Air the clock frequency is at 1.4 gigahertz. So the iPad mini 2 comes with 1.3 gigahertz for the same A7 chip. The new Nexus 7 comes with a Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 Pro processor clocked at 1.5 gigahertz with 2 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM. So on paper, the new Nexus 7 seems to be better than the iPad mini. What I'll do is, at the end of this video, I will run a cross-platform benchmarking tool to see how these two tablets compare as far as computing power goes. For now, let's skip to the build quality. Okay, so the build quality, the iPad mini is an exceptionally well-built product. You get the usual aluminum unibody goodness with its smooth and slick design. It's light to hold and feels like $1,000,000 in your hands. The Nexus 7 sports a soft matte plastic finish. It's also very light and easy to hold, but it definitely doesn't feel like $1,000,000. Though it doesn't feel cheap either and has a better grip than the iPad mini due to its non-slippery plastic build. But let's face it, unless someone is openly biased against Apple products just because it is popular to do so, a neutral person will almost always give the build quality throne to iPad mini over the Nexus 7. I know, the Nexus 7 is much cheaper, and that's a perfectly valid point, but the aluminum build is simply superior to the plastic build. Okay, so let's talk about the dimensions and the weight. So the iPad Air measures 200 millimeters in height, 134.7 millimeters in width, and 7.5 millimeters in thickness, where the Nexus 7 measures 200 millimeters in height, which is exactly the same as the iPad mini, 114 millimeters in width, and 8.5 millimeters in thickness. The mini weighs 331 grams and the Nexus 7 weighs 290 grams. So basically iPad mini is the thinner device, but the new Nexus 7 is the lighter device. Now both of these devices are such lightweights that I can't truly pick a winner in this category. Okay, so next let's talk about the screen resolution and the size. The Nexus 7 has a 7-inch IPS LCD display with a 1920 by 1200 pixel resolution, giving it a pixel density of 323 ppi. The iPad mini has a 7.9-inch IPS LCD display with a resolution of 1536 by 2048, which brings the pixel density to 324 ppi. Seeing as how the pixel density is almost identical, both of these displays will give you an excellent display experience with sharp and crisp graphics. Okay, so next let's talk about the software. The iPad mini with Retina Display runs on the latest version of iOS 7, while the Nexus 7 2013 now runs on the latest version of Android, which is 4.4 KitKat. Now the software category can be subdivided into two domains for comparison purposes. One is the actual operating system and the other is the app ecosystem. Okay, so let's talk about the operating systems. If we inspect the Android 4.4, it is hands down superior to iOS 7. It is a highly versatile operating system with a very customizable interface. You can tweak the looks of an Android tablet to some very specific needs. You can rearrange app icons as you please. You can use fancy live widgets that keep you up to date with relevant information, or you can have beautiful live wallpapers and bring life to your tablet. Compare that to the static interface of the iOS 7. With iOS 7, all you get is a static lock screen and a static home screen, which is populated with nothing but apps and folders. Now, as far as customization goes, all you can do is change your wallpaper. Now, the other domain of comparison is the app ecosystem. It is widely known that the apps on Apple App Store are more polished and more optimized as opposed to Google Play Store apps. Most apps on iOS 7 are smoother in operation and prettier in interface. Now, as for overall smoothness and fluidity of the operating systems, Android 4.4 has no evidence of stutter or lag. Remember, the Nexus line of devices run the purest form of Android, and the purest form has been an exceptionally responsive system ever since Android 4.1 was released with the Project Butter initiative. Now, as for iOS 7, it has always been fluid and lag-free experience, probably because there isn't much going on inside it as opposed to Android. So to summarize, Android is highly customizable and very smooth. iOS 7 has a minimal customization properties, but it is also very smooth. And then again, the iOS 7 comes with better apps on the tablet than on the Android tablets. Okay, so next let's talk about the cameras. Now, I personally never ever use a camera on a tablet because they usually produce very mediocre shots. And also, the size and form factor of a tablet makes it quite inconvenient to take pictures with it. Yet, if these features were not on a tablet, you would feel like you were missing something anyway. So for your information, both tablets also feature a 5 megapixel rear camera and a 1.2 megapixels front-facing camera. Rear-facing cameras are capable of recording at 1080p full high definition on both devices, and the front cameras are capable of recording at 720p. Okay, so let's talk about the battery size and the battery life. The iPad mini has built-in 23.8 watt-hours rechargeable lithium battery, which is advertised to give you up to 10 hours of surfing the web on Wi-Fi, watching video, or listening to music. The Nexus 7 has a 3,950 milliamp hours rechargeable battery, which is advertised as offering up to 9 hours of active use. Now, while we are on the topic of batteries, it would be relevant to mention that the Nexus 7 has wireless charging capabilities if you buy the right accessories, which the iPad mini obviously lacks. Okay, so finally we are going to run a benchmarking test. Let's make sure nothing is running in the background. And let's launch Geekbench 3. And let's just go ahead and start the test. Now what Geekbench 3 does is it calculates the processing and the memory prowess of a given device, and this is a cross-platform benchmarking tool, so the final results are always comparable whether it's iOS or Android. Okay, so this is the perfect test to measure the processing power of these devices. Okay, so the Nexus 7 comes with a single core performance of 583 and the iPad mini comes at 1395. The multi-core performance for the Nexus is 1840 and it's $2518 for the iPad mini. So basically what this tells you is the iPad mini has more processing power than the Nexus 7. Alright, so that brings us to the end of this video. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel for more videos to come. Give me a thumbs up if you liked this video, and also you can go ahead and connect with me socially on Google+, Facebook, and Twitter, for which all the links are in the description below. Thank you again, and I'll see you the next time. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, just throw them down in the comments section below.